Negligence. This passage appears to be a legal provision under Illinois law, specifically Section 9 of the Illinois Underground Utility Facilities Damage Prevention Act. This section outlines the concept of negligence in cases involving damages to underground utility facilities, CATs, computer-aided transmitter system, facilities, excavators, and their equipment during excavation or demolition activities. Here's an example illustrating how this provision might be applied in a real-world scenario. Example: negligence in underground utility damage case. Imagine a construction project in Illinois where a construction company, the excavator, is tasked with digging a trench for the installation of new utility lines. However, during the excavation process, a backhoe operated by the excavator strikes an underground gas pipeline, causing a gas leak and significant property damage. In this case, 1. If it is shown that the excavator failed to comply with the provisions of the Illinois Underground Utility Facilities Damage Prevention Act, they would be considered prima facie guilty of negligence. This means that the excavator is presumed to be at fault for the damage unless they can provide evidence to the contrary. 2. Conversely, if the excavator had followed the rules and regulations outlined in the Act, but the damage resulted from the failure of the gas company, owners and operators of the underground gas pipeline, to comply with the Act, the gas company would be considered prima facie guilty of negligence. In this scenario, the gas company is presumed to be at fault unless they can prove they followed the regulations. In essence, the provision is designed to establish a legal framework for determining liability in cases of damage to underground utilities or facilities during excavation or demolition. It places the burden of proof on the party deemed prima facie guilty of negligence to demonstrate that they acted in accordance with the law to avoid liability. This provision helps ensure that excavators and utility facility operators take appropriate precautions to prevent damage and adhere to the law's requirements to avoid unnecessary disputes and losses in cases of underground utility damage. Please note that this is a hypothetical example for illustrative purposes and does not represent a specific legal case. Legal interpretations and outcomes may vary depending on the circumstances and evidence presented in real-world cases. Let's delve deeper into the legal provision outlined in Section 9 of the Illinois Underground Utility Facilities Damage Prevention Act. 1. Prima facie guilt of negligence for excavators. The provision first addresses situations where damages to underground utility facilities or CATs facilities result from excavation or demolition activities conducted by an excavator, but the excavator has failed to comply with the Act's provisions. In such cases, prima facie guilt of negligence. This means that the excavator is presumed to be at fault for the damages caused. The legal burden of proof shifts to the excavator to demonstrate that they took all necessary precautions, followed the regulations, and acted responsibly during the excavation process. If they fail to provide evidence of compliance, they will be held liable for the damages. Consequences for excavators. The provision encourages excavators to strictly adhere to the rules and regulations set forth in the Act. It emphasizes the importance of proper planning, communication with utility operators, and the use of safe excavation practices to avoid damages. 2. Prima facie guilt of negligence for owners and operators of utility facilities. The provision also addresses cases where damages to excavators, their equipment, or materials occur while they are undertaking excavation or demolition in compliance with the Act's provisions, but the damages result from the failure of owners and operators of underground utility facilities or CATs facilities to comply with the Act. In such situations, prima facie guilt of negligence for utility owners and operators. This means that the owners and operators of the utility facilities are presumed to be at fault for the damages. Just like in the case of excavators, the burden of proof shifts to the utility owners and operators to demonstrate that they followed the law and took the necessary measures to prevent damages. If they fail to provide such evidence, they will be held liable for the damages. Consequences for utility owners and operators. This aspect of the provision encourages utility facility owners and operators to ensure that their facilities are accurately located and marked, and that they promptly respond to excavation notifications and cooperate with excavators to avoid damages. It places the responsibility on them to prevent accidents by adhering to the law's requirements. In summary, Section 9 of the Act establishes a legal framework that promotes accountability and safety in excavation and demolition activities involving underground utility and CATS facilities. It does so by allocating the burden of proof and presumption of negligence based on compliance or non-compliance with the Act's provisions, ensuring that all parties involved take their responsibilities seriously and work to prevent costly and potentially dangerous damages. This provision aims to reduce disputes and enhance safety by creating a structured approach to liability determination in these specific cases.